Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So my name's Katie and today I'm going to be talking about some more underrated adult fantasy series that you might want to be interested in. That didn't make any sense. Some popular adult fantasy series that are more underhyped / underrated that you might be interested in reading. So yeah, let's just get into it. So I've read quite a few of the more popular adult fantasy series, but I've also read some more underrated ones that aren't as hyped as much, so I wanted to highlight some of them here. And also I feel like some of these books you might have heard me talk about a lot because I hyped them up. Jade City, but yeah, so I would say these are not as popular in the booktube world. My fringe, I had a fringe accident, so half of it's really short and half of it's really long because I just basically got it and went snip. So I would not recommend doing that. So I'm just going to talk about some more underrated series today. Okay, so the first one I'm going to start with is The Rune of Kings by Jen Lyons, and also a sequel called The Name of All Things. And yeah, so this series, if you like Name of the Wind, I think you'll really love this one because it follows a very similar structure. I actually really like this one more of Name of the Wind. It kind of follows Kieran, who at the start of the book he's in a jail cell and he's telling his story of how he got there to this other character. And yeah, it just follows him kind of growing up and getting taken into this family who are quite a rich and powerful family, and then he something goes wrong there and then he gets sold into slavery and then he ends up on this magical island and it all goes a bit crazy. But yeah, if you like convoluted family politics, this book is full of that. Some people do think it's a bit confusing, which I think it can be, especially because it follows two timelines. There's some body swapping that goes on in this series. So sometimes the characters in the two different timelines are the same character but in different bodies, so it gets a little bit confusing. But yeah, I still really enjoyed it. I just love the characters. And there is also a really handy family tree in the bag, which does help, especially towards the end when some past characters, they're soul swapping. So yeah, but I do think the soul swapping thing is fascinating. And I have heard that the second book in the series is a lot less confusing. So I'm excited to get to that soon, even though it is already out. I haven't read it yet, but yeah, I'm excited for that. And so I'd highly recommend this one. And then next is quite a popular author, but I feel like this duology of hers is not as widely talked about, and that is the Dreamblood duology by N.K. Jemisin. So the first one is The Killing Moon, and then the second one is The Shadowed Sun. And I read these recently and I just loved them so much. They're in almost an ancient Egypt type setting, which is so fascinating, and they're just so atmospheric, and I think they deal really well with the relationship between church and state almost, and how they interact with each other. And also there's this dream magic, which is just so cool. I just love dream magic, and the characters are so great, especially in the second one, The Shadowed Sun. There's this character called Hanani who's a healer, and I just love healer characters. But also she's very much a woman in a man's world, and she really takes it. She's a very strong character, and she's sort of learning to fit in this world, and yeah, just does a nice examination of gender roles as well. And N.K. Jemisin's writing is just so good. You could just read it forever. So yeah, I would highly recommend these two. Then next is another one who, well, Robert Jackson Bennett. He has his popular Foundry side, but I feel this series of his is really underrated. So the first one is City of Stairs, then City of Blades, then City of Miracles. So yeah, this one we're following this main character Shara, and she goes to this city as an ambassador type thing to investigate what happened. Yeah, because the previous diplomat that went, he was murdered. So yeah, she's trying to investigate that, and this world is very interesting because it's there's these pockets of magic. So magic and the gods have disappeared, but there's these pockets of illusions that are left, and so she's trying to work out what's going on and work out with all these god type figures that have vanished. And yeah, it's very fascinating. I always think this is a bit like Percy Jackson, but for adults, because it's in a city setting, and also there's these god figures that are sort of messing about in events. And yeah, this is just such a great series, and each different book follows a different main character, although there is some crossover like between characters. So in the second one we have this Mugalesh, and she's like a military commander, and she's older as well, which I think is really interesting because often you get kind of younger female protagonists, but I think it's really nice to see like an older one. And yeah, and she's just so badass. She kind of reminds me a bit of Avasarala from the Leviathan Wake series. She's just like the way they're kind of like really sassy and like take no. Yeah, and just swear a lot. And yeah, so she's such a great character. And then the final one, City of Miracles. This one has like one of the best plot twists I've ever read. I don't know if it's even that great, but I just really loved it. I was like shocked. So yeah, and this one almost kind of has a bit of like a found family in it. There's this like warrior guy called Sigurd, and he's the kind of main focus of this one, but also he kind of takes on this like little or like teenager, and yeah, it's just kind of sweet. So yeah, that's that series. So I'd highly recommend that because yeah, it's just a great series. And I almost think, having read like all three, I don't know if I like It or Foundry Side more, because I really like Clef and Sentia and Berenice. But yeah, the characters in this series are great, so it's a really solid series, so I'd highly recommend. And then next I'm going to talk about the Codex Alera by Jim Butcher. So the first one is Furies of Calderon, and this is a 6-book series. I read most of them on audio, except from this first one. Got this from like a charity shop. It's a bit battered, but it's kind of cute. Yeah, so it smells of candles as well because I've had it under my candles. Yeah, so this one is just quite an epic fantasy series. It's like Game of Thrones meets Ancient Rome meets Pokemon. I think it's quite a good description. And I think Jim Butcher was actually challenged to like write it on a bet or something. I don't know. But yeah, we're following Tarvi, who, oh, I love Tarvi. He's like one of my favourite protagonists. Just his growth throughout the series. Like by the end, just so proud of him. And yeah, and actually his name is really, like, I didn't get it, like the significance of it until way too late in the series. But yeah, it's kind of cool. There's lots of like little hidden hints and stuff. But yeah, this is just a really cool series. And Tarvi, he's like this sheep herder, and he has no magic, but everyone else has magic. So it's interesting to see him like deal with that, and how he like finds his kind of inner strength without magic, I think is interesting. And yeah, I just love some of the characters in this series, like Kitai. I love her. I just love characters called Kitai. But yeah, and Daroga, he's so funny. And the second book as well is kind of like a schooly setting, so I really loved that one. And then another one of them has this like ice wilderness setting, which I also really loved. So yeah, I love this series, and it is so great. And yeah, if you just want something that's kind of almost like an introduction to adult fantasy, like it's a good kind of transition between YA and adult, I think this one's really good as well. So yeah, I would highly recommend that one. Okay, then the next like series / author I'm going to talk about is Michael J. Sullivan's books. So the first series is the like Theft of Swords, is the first one, and then I think it's Rise of Empire, and then Heir of Novron. But also the main plug I'm doing here is the Legends of the First Empire series. So the first book in that is called Age of Myth, and then Age of Swords, Age of War, Age of Legend, Age of Death, Age of Empire. So yeah, so that's that series, and I love this series. Like the audiobooks are phenomenal. They're narrated by Tim Gerard Reynolds, who is just, his narration is so good. He does the Red Rising books as well. And this is just such a like unique series because it's kind of a unique setting. It's almost like kind of Viking-y type thing, and there's like clans of humans called runes, and they're worried about the Frey, who are like elves, and they live on the other side of the river. And the Frey are kind of encroaching onto their territory, and they're worried that the Frey are going to come and like attack them. So the humans are like trying to band together and work out what's going on. And yeah, there's also this people are like disappearing in the village. Or yeah, there's this like bear thing that's attacking them in the first book anyway. And yeah, it's really interesting, and it's kind of a big like ensemble cast, and all the characters are so great. And it turns into this like war between the Frey and the elves. But then some of the elves like come onto the Frey side, and yeah, it's just really interesting. And I just love all the characters. Like there's so many great ones, especially female characters as well. Yeah, some of my favourites are Sori, who's like this wild like mystic, and she's just really coming into her powers throughout the series, which I love. And also Bryn, who's like this kind of bookie. She looks after the, like, she's the kind of keeper of records. But she just really comes into herself, and she sort of becomes the main character, especially in the later books in the series. And yeah, how she just, especially in Age of Empire, how she kind of, yeah, I don't want to talk about it without spoilers, but she's just the best. And yeah, there's a himbo character called Tesh who I just love him, and he has this such great storyline, which is kind of like a revenge storyline where he like hunts down his like family's killers, but that's just done so well and I just love it. It's kind of funny but also kind of heartbreaking at the same time. Yeah, so I just love this series. And also, yeah, then the Theft of Swords, that's kind of following Royce and Hadrian, who are like they have such a good bromance, and it's like a kind of, they're like con artists sort of, and then they get sort of embroiled in this like kingdom's politics because they get framed for murdering the king, and yeah, it just all kicks off from there. So that's a great series as well. But I would say I think Legends I like more, but yeah, especially like the later books. The first one isn't my favorite, but yeah, it's so good. So yeah. And then this next book is not really underhyped on my channel, but I think it is underhyped in the book world in general, and that is Jade City by Fonda Lee. So I think I've talked about this like in every video, but I just love it. It's set in this world, and there's these two clans who kind of fight over jade, which is like the hot commodity in this world. And we're following one of the clans, the No Peak clan, and they're kind of the leaders, they're like leading family. So we have Lan, who's like the main guy, the boss, and then his like feral younger brother, Hilo, and then their like estranged sister who's kind of, it happened again, and then their kind of estranged sister called Shay, who is like coming back to the family after some time away and sort of trying to fit in. And I just love the like family relationships in this book, like especially between Hilo and Shay, because they're quite like butt heads at first, but then they grow into like really like supportive siblings, and it's just so great. Yeah, and the action scenes are written so well in this book. I think like Fonda Lee has like she's an expert in martial arts or something, and they're just written so well, and you can just tell. And like the politics is so fascinating, and it's very like urban fantasy, but it works so well. And yeah, I just really love this series and cannot hype it enough. So yeah. And then finally I'm going to talk about Realm of Ash, and no, that's the second one, Empire of Sand and its sequel, Realm of Ash. So yeah, so these is by Tasha Story, and I feel like if you like the kind of what's it called, City of Brass series, you'll love these ones because they're kind of similar. They're like set in sort of a deserty setting, and the magic is kind of a bit like Deva and Jinn, but the magic in this one, Realm of Ash, is so cool because it's like spirits, and they like dance, and then the spirits come, and I think it's a bit dream magic-y as well. But yeah, it's so cool, and a bit of like death magic almost. So yeah, it's just really fascinating. Yeah, the characters are great in it as well. I love Mare. She's like such a kind of, she's a great subversion on the like strong female character trope, and there's a great relationship as well, which I loved. It's sort of like an arranged marriage type thing, but then they like actually fall in love, and I always love that trope. But yeah, and there's some interesting like family politics in this world as well going on, so I would recommend that series as well. It's such a great series. And then its companion kind of is set a few years later, and it follows her sister, and I actually think I like Realm of Ash more. That one's just so like, I don't know, I just really love it. It's hard to talk about without like spoiling the first book because things happen that like directly impact it. But yeah, it's just so great. So yeah, so I hope you got some recommendations from this video. If you are interested in any of these, please let me know down below because I love chatting in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. And I hope you're all having a great day, and I will see you next time.